guys, my name is Heather and today I am sharing with you my review of Housetrap by Mike Mother. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but he emailed me wondering if I was interested in reviewing his novella, and I emailed back almost immediately saying, yes, I would love to. So basically, Housetrap is a novella that follows character Rachel Evans, and she is an overachieving high school student whose main goal is to get into Dartmouth, and that's sort of all she's focused on. At one point, in her schooling, she was not very good at school, and her friends mentioned offhand that she'd be like the least likely to get into college or something. Kind of pissed her off, so she wanted to prove them all wrong. So in the beginning, her character is not super likable. She's kind of harsh. She has one friend who's super positive, a religious friend who's always trying to get her to go to these youth group meetings and stuff like that, and Rachel's always like, no, I have schoolwork to do and all this stuff. She has kind of a rocky relationship with her mother and her little brother. Her mother got divorced recently from their father, so she's kind of, not so happy about that, which is, to be understood. But just as a character, she wasn't super likable in the beginning because of these weird relationships she has with people, and just how kind of one-track minded she is with school. So that day in school, she finds out that a popular classmate of hers, this girl named Alicia Housefell, needs to be tutored in math. And so she doesn't want to do it because she is so focused on her own schooling. She doesn't want to waste time tutoring this girl, but her teacher's like, I'll give you extra credit. So she agrees because of that, and her mom's pretty excited about it because she's like, oh cool, you're gonna hang out with a friend or whatever. And it turns out that Alicia, this popular girl, her father is responsible for inventing this awesome home security invention called Housetrap, where if you see an intruder or a thief or some suspicious person walking outside, walking around your house, you can activate Housetrap. All of your doors and windows are sealed shut with these metal doors, so no one can get in or out. So she goes there, it's this nice house, and she's, tutoring Alicia. Now there are intruders, and this is where the action starts happening. So at first, it's kind of slow going, but then right when the action starts happening, everything picks up. You've got this countdown, and you've got murders, and I'm not gonna say much because I don't want to spoil it, but I was kind of on the edge of my seat, which surprised me because in the beginning of it, I wasn't really into it. I was kind of confused about who the audience was supposed to be because in the email that he sent me, he said this novella is for fans of R.L. Stine, Lois Duncan. Oh, maybe this is geared towards older middle schoolers or something, or older elementary school kids, because the writing style was kind of simplistic and some of the word choices were kind of weird. There were grammatical errors. I don't think this book is at its stage where it should be published. I think there's definitely some revision that needs to happen, some polishing that needs to happen. There are times when he says one name, but I think he meant another. At one point, at 2 points actually, it switched from past tense to present tense. So that was a little weird. So there are weird things about it, but as far as the story, I really enjoyed the story. It was very fast paced, especially once it hit the action. And I don't know, I like how it ended. There was definitely character development, which was nice. And because it's so short, I feel like it could be made into a movie. I actually think that it would be better as a movie because as I was reading it, I was sort of imagining it as a movie. I didn't feel like I was reading something. I felt like I was watching this kind of thrilling movie play out in my mental screen, if that makes any sense. It kind of reminded me of When a Stranger Calls, not really in the premise of it. Like, she wasn't babysitting or anything, but she was trying to protect these two little kids. At first, when I was reading it, the first kind of third of it, I was like, this is okay. Like, I'd give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. But now that I finished it, at this point, I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. And if, you know, he rewrites it and kind of does some revision as far as grammar and word choice, and that kind of thing, if he were to send it to me again, and there were these kinds of improvements that I'm looking for, I'd probably give it like a 3.5, you know, maybe 4 out of 5 stars. So if that were to happen, I think I would enjoy it a lot more. But as far as the story is really good. So one of the bad guys, these two bad guys are like, they're young, you know, they're kind of, I think they're high schoolish age, late high school age. But I feel like the one bad character, I'm not going to give too much information, his name is Scott. So if you ever read it, it's Scott. I feel like his character should be older, like maybe mid to late 20s, because it felt weird how evil he was and how young he was. Because the other guy, Jay, is kind of high school age, so, and he's sort of timid about doing some of the bad things. But Scott is just like, oh yeah, like, kill them all, you know? And I'm just like, Scott is such a scary character. I feel like it'd be even more believable if he were older. I want him to be older. I want to be more scared of him than I was, because when I was reading it, I'm like, how bad could like a 17-year-old be? 17, 18-year-old. I mean, maybe Mike, the author, had envisioned him older and just it didn't come across, but he seemed like he was really young. Like, all the characters seemed really young except for the parents. And it was just weird. I'm like, wow, like, you're this young and you are already in trouble with like a drug lord, you know? So yeah, so anyway, that was a little weird. So if he were aged up a bit, that would make sense. The other thing, so when I was saying before how it felt like at first, because of the weird writing style, it kind of would make sense for like a younger audience. I totally changed my mind on that once the action started, because it was getting violent. I mean, there's violence, there's drug references, all this stuff. So it's definitely supposed to be for young adult with all of that content. It just isn't, it doesn't seem polished enough for a young adult novella quite yet. Oh, and the other thing that I thought would be really cool, if/when it gets published into a hard copy of a novella, I thought that the end papers, it would look really cool if it were a blueprint of the house, and like it showed the mechanisms of the house trap and everything. I just kind of envisioned it, because as I was reading it, I felt like he was trying to be as detailed as possible about the layout of the house, and it was kind of hard for me to envision it, I think, the way he wanted the reader to. So it'd be really cool if the end papers of the book had a blueprint or a map of some kind. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say what happened, but just for Mike, if you're watching this, I do want to know more about what happened to Jay's father, and I want to know really more detail why, when Rachel said what she said to Jay, why that was so effective. So I don't want to say more, but the author knows what I'm talking about. So those are all my notes. It was kind of all over the place. I'm not as great at doing book reviews as I want to be, so this is good practice for me. I do want to thank you again, Mike. Thank you so much for sending me your book. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like me doing book reviews, give this video a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.